It's Cyberpunk 2021. The internet has defeated CLG. As a result, the game's going to be played later on. It'll be played off-stream, unfortunately. The game had to be postponed as a result of the technical issues. So we are going to skip right ahead. We are going to broadcast Golden Guardians versus Dignitas in just a moment, Coco. How are you feeling about our dystopian future?
So, a little bummed out, but I'm excited for all the new hardware that I'm going to be getting into my arms. So it's going to be pretty exciting.
Would you augment yourself when the brain chips come out? Are you the first one?
I don't know about the brain chips, but the blade arms are definitely a thing that I am down for sure. So, going back into this, yeah.
Okay, I mean, there was a story I read in, I think, Wired like a couple of years ago about NFC chips that you could embed in your hands so you can like unlock doors with them. And the needle they had was like the size of the stem of a pencil. And it was huge. And that put me off augmentation. Anyway, tell me about Dignitas versus Golden Guardians.
Yeah, so from the stuff of nightmares to a team that is really living one right now, Golden Guardians is having a rough bout in week 1 and heading into week 2. I've got a lot of concerns for the GG Academy squad because their roster has some pretty good potential. I'm looking at Tally, I'm looking at Yunbi and Prismal. These guys are going to be people that are going to be like late game investments, something that you put down on like a 2-year contract and sort of try and build them up with the Golden Guardian support staff. However, they haven't really gotten that chance to really prove that they can really mesh into that structure and ecosystem just yet. Going into this week 2, hopefully some things have been sort of muddled out on the back end for them to really attack this Dignitas Academy squad on the right foot.
Yeah, I think we have kind of similar problems for both these teams. We're neither Golden Guardians nor Dignitas Academy feels like they have a super strong team identity yet.
Yeah.
For Golden Guardians, they do have a lot of promising developmental players, but they also, I think, need to do something this season to prove that that promise is there. And I would hope that could start now. Because so far, Golden Guardians have lost to Team Liquid and Immortals, both of whose Academy teams are absolutely terrifying right now. Both of whose Academy teams you can be excused for losing to. Now they're playing Dignitas. Dignitas beat FlyQuest, also lost to TL. So this is, I think, our first good look at how good Golden Guardians are relative to other teams who are a little more middle of the pack.
Of course. Yeah. So I'll be very curious on how they're going to be able to approach that one. With the touch on Dignitas Academy, though, looking into how they've sort of interacted in the first week, I actually kind of attach them to a much more familiar name that I'm used to in the amateur scene right now, which is actually Solafide's squad. It's something where it's a lot of veterans with, you have Acadian, you've got Lorlo, and then with JJ and Yasui, who have been sort of making an upward trend. They are players that really depend on their micro positioning in team fights and in laning phase to get them that upper advantage. But then after that, that's when you see that team identity start to become a blurry mess where they don't exactly know where they need to be in those mid-game performances, where they need to designate laners, where they should be placing spawn at the right time. And that's where I'll be looking to see who's going to be taking the mantle as a leader in this team. And so far, I'm looking at Lorlo or Yasui to do that.
Yeah, Yasui has been a, I think, stable presence on this team so far. But I also want to call out Spawn as you like to say, the project player for this team. He is the player that this team is built around developing, because Spawn was one of the best ADCs in Amateur last year. He was genuinely an incredible presence in the bot lane of, dare I say, a mediocre team. He was playing on Polar Ace, who got to semifinals pretty consistently, contended, but were never in the running to beat a new 100 Thieves 1-2 that was consistently finishing first and second. And Spawn was a big reason why they were getting as far as they were. So I think it's really important that as we get into this Academy season, we get a little bit more out of him.
And this is probably one of the better tests for him going into week 2, day 1, is against Prismal and Chime, who have shown inklings of promise, but have never gotten the tools to really put their mettle to the test. And that's what I'm going to be looking in at on the side of Golden Guardians Academy. Yes, Spawn being that prospect player, but on this bottom side of the map, it's something that there's so much ambition that I'm really hungry for.
Because it's a very fun one-to-one matchup down there at the bottom.
Of course.
Because Prismal is kind of the opposite story. He's been around Academy. He has played on 100 Academy in 2019 and looked real good. He has always looked promising. But Prismal has never been the star carry of a team. He has never been the player who 100% is going to be the next player to get promoted to the LCS, despite all that promise. And that says to me that this season, this game actually, versus Dignitas, needs to be where he starts to show up. Because you've got a decent team around you, and this is, as we talked about, an opponent that is within the striking distance.
And we need to also see Guardians. Like, we need to something that, like, we need to have a comp that gives them the tools to do that. And you look at the week 1 compositions that were cooked up, a lot of lanes with a lack of priority in the early game, to where they weren't able to really fight for any proactivity to try and set up for fights, set up for skirmishes, help out Rosethorn in looking for those counter jungle invasions, or just to try and get any sense of a lead. And as much as I have a little bit of a self-conflict with how those drafts are, because they are so very heavily invested in the late game style, it's the difference of focusing on getting there to just being there, right? And that's what I'm looking for out of Golden Guardians, is having that tool to progress them to that late game stage where their compositions can really unfold.
Because we were talking about this pregame, there are a lot of teams across the world that play more towards late game compositions.
Yeah.
The problem with Golden Guardians is drafting so far. And again, they did play Team Liquid followed by Immortals. So two of the best teams in the Academy right now. But the problem you identified with Golden Guardians drafting so far has been that they're drafting for late game and getting knocked out of the early game.
Yeah, it's just late game. Like, there's not a lot of priority on that. We had the one game where they were able to draft up Kai'Sa for Prismal, but it was something that they were going already into a very heavy priority contention matchup with that duo. I believe it was against an Aphelios, if I recall correctly, that they were running that into. Correct me if I am wrong on that one. And that's something... Yeah, Jan. And so it's something where even then, even if you have that one prio pick, it's not going to help out the rest of the team, because you're already in this really tight battle with one of the better teams in Academy so far.
I just have some fun stats here that I pulled from Golden Guardians' is, I think, unrepresentatively disastrous run so far. I don't think this is fair, but here are the stats after they have played 2 games versus, again, the 2 best teams so far in Academy. They have never gotten a Rift Herald. They have never gotten a Baron, they have gotten 1 Drake, and they have only cleared 32% of wards placed by the enemy team. For reference, many of the other teams who did go 0-2 in their first week are hovering around like the 40% rate. That's kind of the weak side of ward clear percentage. And I think what that says is exactly what we were talking about. Those stats paint a picture of a team that is just getting blasted out of the laning phase.
Yeah, you can throw a graph at anybody, you can dump stats on top of a team as much as you want, but you need to understand what the story is, right? Exactly, is the fact that these stats have shown that they cannot get out of lane, that the early game has become this very, very dull sense of what Golden Guardians should be, where you need to interact with Rosethorn, you need to find Tally a good matchup to help sort of get this team, sort of get their engine started, to be honest, so they can really get into this mid game where they do have the capability to thrive.
And I think the players that have looked the best on that team so far have looked the best because they're staying afloat. Like, chief among that, we talk about Tally, who does have the highest KDA on that team right now. It's 1. But he has done that because he's been on an island in the top lane, doing all right in lane. And they've never gotten past that stage into, okay, we're team fighting and we're trading even, we're looking threatening. And all of that is not to say that Golden Guardians are a bad team who are never going to win a game. It is to say the opposite. They are a very promising team, but they have some identifiable problems that have prevented them from being competitive thus far. And this is a make it or break it game for at least the early part of the season here. This is our first real measuring stick, because they aren't playing against a team that has looked super coordinated, who's come out of the gate strong. They're playing against another pretty average middle-of-the-pack team. And we need to find out whether or not they are in that average category, or if there's something going really wrong.
Yeah, and it almost hits every single one of the boxes that we're looking for with this matchup, right? Like going from the smallest factor, saying we need to see if these players are really promising in their own light, where they're going into a matchup where they're facing off veterans against Lorlo, Acadian, and of course JJ respectively, to where on the personal one-on-one level, they have that capability to thrive. And then from there, with the identity of the team starting to come in together, if they're able to have the correct tools to really properly start to communicate and create those macro setups that we're really hungry for in Golden Guardians Academy. And against Dignitas, who have that micro play on lock, have that natural skill in those individuals, and then are still lacking that identity as a whole, as a cohesive unit, it's the perfect opponent within striking distance, as you mentioned, to challenge themselves and really show their colors.
And on the Dignitas side, they have a roster that, again, has a lot of different parts that should be working better than they are.
Yep.
But the difference is those parts aren't untested, right? You have a lot of players coming in from the OPL where we're not quite sure how to rank them. You have players coming in from Amateur over on the Golden Guardians side. Over on the Dignitas side, it is a lot of known factors. We know the entire top half of their map is solid. That is Lorlo, Acadian, Yusui. And they should be solid. Dare I say, they should be winning games here in Academy. So, I think there's a little bit of a sort of Damocles hanging over their heads as well, because this is a Dignitas roster that needs to prove they are still able to hang here in Academy. They are still able to develop and grow as players. One of our highlight players so far has been Yusui in that mid lane. I think we have a really fun matchup between him and Yunbi. Yep. Because you have kind of exactly that narrative I was talking about in micro between the hot new talent out of Amateur over on the Yunbi side and Yusui, who's been around the block, is an established player, and to be fair, has looked good so far this season.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how well Yunbi's able to perform. I kept a close eye on him at his time during XT Esports when he was in the amateur scene and had shown a lot of progress. It's just, again, that giant leap up to another high contested pickup. And I think with how Yusui is going, if any of the viewers want to just say, like, scrub back and check out how those highlight reels went with the Silas that was really keeping Dignitas in their own game in week 1, is how will he be able to handle that properly? And I think the next step for us going into the series is either to sort of replicate a draft to see if we can give the tools for these players to really start to thrive, or possibly theorize a little bit more on how the mid game will formulate itself out.
And I have just been checking in, and it does look like everything is going to form, and we should be into the champion select in just a few moments. So unfortunately, our podcast is going to be ending. But in the kind of nature of all podcasts, let's wrap things up by talking a little bit about the Academy League as a whole. If you've just joined us, we have had a couple of technical issues, by which I mean about 20 minutes of technical issues. And we are headed into our second game of the evening. So let's kind of talk about the standings of Academy right now. I think the teams to watch in order are Immortals, Team Liquid, Cloud9.
Yeah. I'd agree with that. And if you're looking for a team to cheer on who are sitting in their honeymoon phase and have the most going for them in a short-term investment, those are the teams I'd be looking at. If I'm someone who's going to be very critical about teams, who's invested in not only the players, but also the organizations behind them, the support staff, I'm really looking at Golden Guardians and Dignitas. These are two teams that have been struggling to really find their identity, not only as players themselves, but because of the organizations. And this is really going to be a great testing ground for them because of how short the Academy split is going to be this year. And if they do come out at the bottom of the ringer, they're going to be going up against some of the biggest heavy hitters in the Proving Ground circuit. And if they don't show colors here, I've got some big red flags that need to be addressed going later into the season.
Yeah, that's a good way to lead off, because of course, as we're sorting out the middle of the pack right now, it's really easy to call out those top 3 because they're the ones that looked real dominant in the first week. But the middle of the pack is what's getting sorted out right now, and it matters because if you place top 6 this season, this shortened season, you qualify to the LCS Proving Grounds automatically. It's a tournament you could probably vaguely compare to EU Masters. The bottom 4 teams will have to battle through Tier 1 amateur tournaments with the best teams outside of the LCS system. So you're having Tier 2 amateur tournaments right now that are running, and all of these amateur teams that you may have heard the names of, some players who were formerly in the LCS are competing in them, are going at it. and the best teams will come out of that and play the bottom 4 teams in the Tier 1 amateur tournaments after the Academy season ends. And then the top 10 of the teams from the LCS Tier 1 Proving Grounds tournaments, I'm probably getting all the naming wrong, will qualify to the LCS Proving Grounds proper, where the rest of the Academy rosters are waiting. So there is a possibility that some of these Academy rosters underperform in the LCS Academy split, then get into the Tier 1 tournaments against the best teams in Amateur, and don't make it to the year-end tournament. Don't make it to Proving Grounds.
Yeah, and they are on a very short amount of time. Like, just a reminder that it's a 5-week Academy split. When we turn off the screens tonight, we're almost halfway through. And that is a very alarming, it's a very alarming rate and a big eye-opener for a lot of these teams who are struggling to find those identities. And that's why I'm so crucial on these teams to really find that philosophy that they need to undergo, because not only these teams who themselves, it's more of just the players trying to find their own cohesion together. There's other teams today that we're going to be watching, Team Liquid, Evil Geniuses Academy specifically, where they have brand new coaches that also need to discover their own philosophy towards the game and need to help apply that to the players. But for right now, this is how we're going to be looking into Dig versus Academy, just how well these two teams will be able to apply their players and give them the tools that they need to succeed.
Yeah, I think it's fun because previously, when we talked about Academy, there was a lot of focus on the teams that were doing well. You talk about the C9 Academy that was dominating. You talk about the top teams because those are the teams from which players are going to progress to LCS, and kind of not a whole lot else was paid attention to.
Yep.
Now, if you are in the bottom half of Academy, you are vulnerable to a pseudo-relegation. You are vulnerable to not being able to play in the year-end tournament because you get beaten by amateur teams. And I can think of nothing more humiliating for an Academy roster. So
I don't know, Solifide and Barrage are looking pretty good in amateur. I know not a lot of people have been checking it out, but if you are looking for some crazy content in the amateur scene, you guys should be checking out those games.
Yeah, but for legal reasons, I must point out, Coco, you do some coaching work for Barrage.
Not coaching. It's just
analyst.
Analytics, okay.
The just making sure that you're not getting yourself in legal trouble.
Yeah, no bias here.
The Golden Guardians roster, though, faces a kind of test, I think, in the middle of the pack here in Academy that Academy teams haven't previously had to worry about. Yeah. So I'm really excited to see how that changes the way these teams play.
Oh, for sure. And I think the second week, it's a nice breath of fresh air because they're facing both teams that are pretty much within striking distance of one another. So it's something that is going to be a little bit of an easier route. They came in, they got hit down pretty hard by Immortals and Cloud9. So going into, or Immortals and Team Liquid, as with learning from those two teams who have had such dominant performances, it might be the best result to learn your lessons in the hardest way possible, but also the most effective way possible, because they're the ones that exploited you the most, and they're the ones that are going to teach you the very obvious lessons that you can patch up quickly. And then going into these striking distance teams, that's where you can make some more fine tuning heading into week 3. So once we get into this draft, I'll be sure how well they're able to band-aid those big bruises that they were receiving in week 1, where Dig Academy, like, if Yusui pops off, this game might be over.
I do want to call something out as we're talking about this matchup, because Golden Guardians, I found an interview with Chime, who is, of course, the support over on Golden Guardians Academy. He gave an interview to Esports Network with a Z in esports. And he said to them that his goal with the bot lane was to dominate with Prismal and show that they were a strong enough duo to get promoted into LCS. And he cited the fact that there were a whole lot of Oceanic players coming into LCS Academy this season, and said that he wanted to follow up on their aggressive, skirmish-like playstyle that those Oceanic players were bringing in. That was a preseason interview. I don't know, maybe that's changed.
Yeah.
But it is something to note that Golden Guardians haven't pulled that off yet. We have not seen the aggressive, skirmish-heavy playstyle from that team.
Yeah, Chime promotes trying to be aggressive and get that proactivity in the lane, and then they get drafted a Seraphine Galio matchup, which I can tell you as much as any Seraphine lane can tell you so far. If you checked out those Cloud9 Academy games, it's not a fun matchup for anyone in that lane. It's quite abysmal.
No,
So
nobody is having fun, and that's why it
it's
is
not fun.
delightful.
It's fun to watch once the team fights get starting, and it really the entire house begins to burn down. But I believe we are soon to be heading into draft.
Yes, we are
TJ?
moments away from draft. As we head into this, I think it is a good thing to pay attention to how the Golden Guardians draft for their early game. We worried about their late game focus again. I also think we need to put kind of a fire under Dignitas, because they need to start putting some consistent wins on the board. Golden Guardians haven't won a game yet. Dignitas surely won't let them be the first up.
Exactly, right? Like, we had spent so much time talking about how Golden Guardians need to give them the tools to get to that late game. And Dignitas Academy, as long as they're able to either cancel that out or look for a capability to just really embolden their micro playstyle, then they'll be able to just sort of invest on their current success rate that they have going for them. Seraphine taken away, so a lot of that late game scaling is gone. Hecarim and Olaf are also taken off the board as well. With how this is going so far, and with how Acadian and Rosethorn like to play the jungle matchup, I might guess for either a Nidalee Graves situation here. Lilia is still available, so we're going to be seeing a lot of power farming out of these junglers, as per usual, as it is with patch 11.2. The key note that I would be looking for so far is, are we going to be seeing fasting Senna in the bottom lane? Because Cloud9 would be the team I would be looking at it, but with how Golden Guardians and how Coops likes to draft with late game potential, we might be seeing that picked up early on in the draft.
Golden Guardians target their first two bans at Acadian in that jungle. No interest in giving him anything to get started with, and this is interesting. I won't discuss it quite yet because it's over. So Dignitas, on their focus, did get rid of a lot of threat in that bot lane. It was the Hecarim ban out for Rosethorn, who likes to have an early presence on the map. Even in his amateur days, we saw that. And then they get rid of Seraphine and Thresh, taking things away from China. First pick is indeed that Kai'Sa. Does that make you happy? Is that what Spawn wants?
That is the traditional beginning to this story, I'd have to say, TJ. Starting out taking the currently best ADC right now in the meta, and with Nidalee, that's another predictable pickup from Rosethorn, being that power farmer. Ooh. But I did just see that Bear Man be picked up by the side of Acadian, so we're going to see a little bit of a spice change up with the new tank item changes that have happened, which is really emboldened Udyr jungle in this current state.
Yeah, Kai'Sa, Udyr, Gnar will open things up for Dignitas. You can tell Coach Invert is doing his homework.
Oh, yeah.
We certainly have seen quite a lot of Udyr in ERLs and in LEC. Yeah. Golden Guardians on the opposite side get themselves a Nidalee, who's certainly a respectable jungler. No Udyr, though. A Renekton and a Twisted Fate.
I like this pickup, actually, because this is where, from Yoonbi, you have the Twisted Fate in your hand, and you can hard focus Lorlo on this Gnar. When he hits that mini Gnar, super squishy, and even with the Nidalee, it's just already, I am liking this draft from what I had seen previously from Golden Guardians in Week 1, because there is a set early game goal. Get Tally online, get this Renekton fed, hard focus this top side of the map, but because of how obvious that objective is, this win condition might just become their Achilles heel if Dignitas Academy is able to muddle it down in the laning phase and then adjust to their win conditions in the bottom side.
How do you feel about that Gnar Renekton matchup? Because that is going to, I think, be our star matchup for this early game between Lorlo and Tally.
It's very much just a focus of Renekton will get bullied early on in those stages. Once you hit level 6, that's when outside factors start to come into play. Rosethorn's Nidalee and Yoonbi's Twisted Fate specifically. I just looked at that Samira ban as well. I was going to mention that Prismal and Chime, as you talked about with that interview, want to get some priority in the bottom side of the map. The only ADC that is really still viable for that capability is that Samira, to either get a Samira Alistar matchup and take away that aggressive support from JJ. But with now that ADC offline, you have to look at the champion pool here. It's either you pick Aphelios, who is going to be a great team fight ADC later down the line, but with the support, whichever he's going to get, might cause some hiccups in those early to mid game stages.
Yeah, Prismal's looking at something like Aphelios, like Jhin right now.
Oh, there goes Aphelios, bye-bye.
Which is not what his playstyle typically plays towards, so instead we pull out the EU special. Here comes Vayne.
All right, this is much better than what Jhin would have been providing. Yes, it would have given you a little bit more stability in lane, but Vayne has some new matchups and some new sort of complications in the laning phase that she's able to exploit fairly well. It just comes down to where JJ is going to be sitting on that support pickup. I'm predicting either an Alistar or Leona will be that possibility to give that priority in lane. It will be the Leona, so in kind, Golden Guardians will get that R5 support pickup to see if they can get themselves a slight chance or an advantage over the Spawn JJ matchup for Prismal and Chime.
It is worth noting Dignitas are sitting on that mid lane pickup. We still don't know what's being thrown over to Yusui, who has been one of their best players. Oh.
I'd be okay with the Silas, but okay, the Tristana locked in. You have a lot of AD damage here, and this is where it forces Golden Guardians to say you need to pick a hard tank support who will be able to negate a lot of our full focused AD damage output. Sure, Kai'Sa is a little bit of that mixed damage with how her passive works, but it really forces the question for Golden Guardians to answer it, because you can't pick an Enchantress, you will be bullied by Leona, and with Chime now picking up that Braum, you answer the question that Dignitas had requested from you, and you're able to get at least a stabilized lane. Maybe not winning, but at least stable for Prismal and Chime.
Yeah, I think it's important that Prismal and Chime didn't get a hard engage lane, because again, they want to play a little bit more lane bully, and they can't really do that to the extent they would have wanted to if they'd gotten, say, Leona Vayne. I also think, as wow, we are right into this game.
We're trying to pick it up, man. Like, we were 20 minutes just... I was reading a book for 45 minutes. It was a great book.
What happened in The Hobbit while we were waiting?
I'm not spoiling it, because then Twitch chat would be very upset, but it was a decent... It was a fun read. Movies, not so great. However, we are seeing a level 1 invasion here, topside from Golden Guardians, so already I am liking what Golden Guardians is trying to put onto the table, being a little bit more proactive, trying to be aggressive in the early game where they've been thriving. It's just now a question of, will this, at least proactivity, ever come to a true consequence of itself, whether good or bad?
Oh my god, I'm like doing some jumping jacks. Cole, it has been a while, but we are into game. Dignitas versus Golden Guardians for our first game of week 2 here on the LCS Academy. We talked during the draft a lot about that top side. Do you still think that Lorlo and Tally are the lane to watch, or does that shift with the picks we saw in mid, where Yusui now has the ability to be more of a threat onto Yunbei?
Yasui's reply with Tristana pretty much tries to hard force Yunbi to stick to lane, because he is either going to trade with him on the Hail of Blades Tristana and really make sure he sits underneath his turret and is scared to go up to a wave to try and farm, so that then sticks him to that lane to where he's not going to be as confident to go out, get those catches, and do that three-man dive strategy that we were talking about, with Tally being the center focus of that win condition. So if that does come out to a beneficial result for Yusui, we'll have to keep an eye on how he's able to approach it. So far, he's doing fairly well, as it is with Tristana in these solo lane phases. But for the rest of the team, you've got to look at the bottom side of Spawn and JJ. How much priority are they going to be able to win over pre-6 before Golden Guardians is able to apply to their true early game win condition?
Yunbi says, "Please, sir, may I have a single CS?" Does eventually get some out of this, but it has been slow pushed successfully by Yusui, who I believe just shoved forward to Ward Raptors.
Yep. So they do know that Rosethorn is on his top side of the map. We'll be able to keep track of that. It's a pretty traditional start as well. A lot of those junglers, again, it's a traditional full clear. Though you got to keep attention to Lorlo, who, once he just jumps out of that Mininar form, he is prone to some harassment if Rosethorn decides to avert his eyes to the top side of the map, because he's not going to be contested on these crab contests. You have Acadian on the bottom half, where he's going to be able to get that full clear, get his crab. So you need to be starting to play a little bit safe here for Lorlo. Make sure that you don't get punished for pushing out a little early in this level 3 matchup, so you can go ahead and continue to nullify the win condition that Golden Guardians is looking to encroach on.
And that was something you called for. You said you wanted Rosethorn to be present in this top side of the map, kind of changing the way the lane matchup played out. Maybe not like this. Lorla will hop and skip past the fight because he's pulling in reinforcements. Here's Acadian and Yusui. Yusui over the wall will engage onto Rosethorn. Flash from Acadian. Flash encounter. Rosethorn will burn his flash, take some damage, but nobody goes down.
I like the adjusted strategy from Acadian, going full clear and then immediately going to contest this top scuttle, saying that with Lorlo being pushed up, he needs to be there to help body block and be a guardian for him if Tally and Rosethorn looked to try and push him back underneath his turret. Though that is successful for Golden Guardians, they are not the ones that come out on top of that little scuffle that went on. You get double scuttle potentially for Acadian, who is able to, again, revert back to those newly respawned camps on the top side of the map and continue to power farm.
Yeah, I think that was really well played. I'm going to put it even down to like Lorlo going on a somewhat suicidal engage there because of the communication, knowing that the rest of Dignitas was rotating up and knowing that it was really important to stop that scuttle from going over. Otherwise, that could have been a waste of time for the jungle rotate. So really, really good communication from Dignitas and good signs of life as we kick things off here.
A good sign as well for Golden Guardians, though, is that this bottom lane has gone fairly neutral. There hasn't been any kind of trades from JJ or Spawn, and with these resets now coming in, you look at how the Dragon Timer is now up. We have Infernal ready, and that's something that we need to keep an eye on for Golden Guardians, because Dignitas can fairly easily get mid-bot prio and then allow Acadian to either hard sneak it or just go ahead and everyone collapse to take the objective efficiently as a unit. So with them picking up that Scuttle Crab, you just saw that Vision Ward get dropped down by Chime. They know that that condition is up for grabs from Dignitas Academy, and they need to at least be able to answer it as long as they are able to continue to farm safely under their turrets.
Yeah, you do have, as you were talking about, that control ward right there on the Infernal Drake, and I suspect neither team especially wants to go for it, which benefits a Golden Guardians roster that has, as you have said, been playing towards late game repeatedly. My question is, do you think with this draft that still works in their favor? Oh, he's just going.
No, yeah, this is the plan. Like, Acadian could have sneaked it because he had mid and bot prio. He's all good to go, but this is what the Chime Vision Ward was for. It was just to make sure that they could keep track of it, because now they can reply effectively. Yunbi is level 6. He can come in. He can keep eyes of everyone with Destiny, and this just looks like a forfeit because, again, Rosethorn's on the top side of the map, and they're saying, look, they can take this first Infernal Drake. It's fine. We can stack for Soul later down the line. Let us look to our true win condition in this early stage, which is Tally, and also you're able to get some counter jungling while you're at it.
I was laughing at Rosethorn's dismay. He throws a spear seconds before the Grump spawns. A little workout. First strike of the game, as you were talking about, does go over to Dignitas. You don't think that is a disastrous start for Golden Guardians?
It
does start that Drake timer quickly.
Yeah, it's not disastrous for Golden Guardians because it's just one. However, if it continues to be a trend where Rosethorn is on the wrong side of the map when Dragon is available, and they know that Dignitas Academy is having motions towards that objective, then it starts to become a worrying trend. But for right now, with how everyone has now hit level 6 across the board outside of the bottom lane, this is where that Golden Guardians win condition is now... It's now green lit, and they're saying, okay, when can we start looking for these dives? And this is where I need to see proactivity from Rosethorn and from Yunbi specifically, because they're the ones that need to push out their wave, hit the checkbox, and say, all right, Tally, you ready for this turret dive? And Tally is the final one that turns the key to say, let's go for this. He's on Mininar, burst him out, and take it over. But right now, I'm not seeing any of that so far. It's just a few seconds or maybe a minute away from them to do that preparation and then try and assess on that. So a little slow for now as everyone just sort of keeps to slow scaling.
And I'm going to flag a potential problem here, Cole, because Dignitas do also have a pretty decent spike coming up towards the mid game. Like, it is a little harder to track because these things are new to our meta, but Kai'Sa spikes much earlier than she did last season. We do have a Tristana in the mid lane, which I expect to kind of come online throughout the mid game when they complete their mythic. And then you have the Udyr, who is dominant so long as they can stay ahead right now.
Yeah. And not to mention, he has cheaper tank items now for Mythic. Like, he will be going...
Chem tank, baby.
Yeah, he'll be going for the Chem tank, which now has the ability haste as well. So it's just an absolute win-win for those initial Mythic item power spikes. Also, like you mentioned with Spawn's Kai'Sa, we'll be looking for that Kraken Slayer in a few moments' time. And as great as it is for a safe lane for GG, it's not looking too bright so far.
Yeah, so that's my question. Do you think there is still a mid-game win condition for Golden Guardians? Because my indication is that we're just going to brawl in the mid-game, and that is very likely going to decide our game. Both these teams spike around the same time.
Yeah, it's starting to look like that. I'd be a little worried, but it is going to be how this Rift Herald is thrown out. I want to see a fight here from Golden Guardians to try and at least contend for this. They may not be able to get the Herald, but they possibly could pick up some kills if Tally is able to find the flank.
Get in there, says Coca.
Please, don't just give this over.
Says no thanks. Backs away. They do know that's resetting, so they may just have timed this out. We may still have an opportunity.
Prismal's
Yep,
got a
here
priority.
we go. Good timing. Rosethorn over the wall. 2,000 HP on this Rift Herald. Dignitas will cede control as the entirety of Golden Guardians come in. They're aware of Tally on the flank. Tally and JJ kind of skirmishing there. 1,000 HP now. Good engage from Yasui. Glacial Fissure will be spent on the front lines from Chime. No HP on this Rift Herald. It will be picked up by Dignitas. Front lines, though, Lorlo is gone. And that means that all of Golden Guardians just need to back away. Yasui will find the trade, but check out JJ. He's nailed down by Tally. It's 2 for 1 in our opening exchange. Golden Guardians taking the team fight win, but losing the Rift Herald.
This is what I needed out of Golden Guardians, that proactivity to address the problems that Dignitas Academy were trying to make for them. With the Rift Herald being contested at that time, they don't need to win that Herald over. They just need to find some kills and make it to where Dignitas questions that challenge. And now with 2 kills going over, most specifically a kill going over to Prismal, this will help get that Vayne online, give him some priority in those duels against Spawn later down the line. And now those mid-game skirmishes that you were a little worried about are looking just a bit brighter.
Yeah, a little bit better for Golden Guardians, as you say, directing the gold in the right direction, appropriately enough.
It was also great zoning from them as well. Like you had gotten the exhaust from Chime right onto Lorlo, who wasn't able to get in that flash Gnar ultimate zone to really force that hard engagement from Dig.
And Rosethorn, our amateur jungler, who both of us have previously criticized for having kind of weird positioning sometimes, not being able to play to their own win conditions, is able to do this style of jungling that Rosethorn most excels at, which is constant aggression into the backlines, pushing the limits, and having the team back you up whilst you're doing it.
But I also like that the observers pointed out that JJ had missed that flash engagement onto Tally, so they could not just hard invest onto one flank and shut down that win condition of Tally. This is that great Chime from Lorlo, Chime exhaust onto Lorlo, which was able to complement Prismal's Condemn. And from there, it was just an absolute win from Golden Guardians going on to Renekton for Tally, and then that Prismal pickup as well. So great success all around on that
and it turns into a Drake.
Yeah, okay.
First Drake of the game will be picked up by Golden Guardians, and things are looking up for the boys in gold as after a disappointing start to the season, a very disconnected and uncoordinated start to the season, this looks like a refreshed team.
And they have the tools to look for these skirmishes and really find different weak points within the armor of Dignitas to break that open. This micro play that Dig's roster has been investing in is not too good, and this is a little bit of a flip of the coin. I wanted to see a 3-man dive from Golden Guardians.
Dominus will be burned by Tally. That's full heal. Rift Herald will collide with the turret, but not take it down, and Yunbi is here in lane. Full damage coming out. Meanwhile, in the bot lane, it is Spawn trying to get out of dodge as quick as they can. They will be marked by the Winter's Bite, shut down by the Glacial Fissure. 1 kill passed over in the bot lane to Golden Guardians. Yunbi and Tally do need to stay alive for that to be worth it, though, and Yunbi's flash is a little bit too late, so Yasui will have their 2nd kill of the game as Dignitas trade even, and will even get an extra turret.
Unfortunate call there from Yunbi, just extending too far, trying to fight for something that really didn't need to be fought for. You were there to cancel the dive from Dignitas Academy and keep your turret alive with Tally in hand. And at that time, when you do that overextend, you get immediately punished. And from there, almost the entire win condition that you're able to pick up from Prismal getting that priority and getting that kill onto Spawn in the bottom side of the map as a reply from the Dignitas Academy play has now been made moot and has sort of gone back to that neutral state to where people have hit those resets, are now coming back to contest for that priority. Thankfully for Golden Guardians, there's no true neutral objective at the moment for Dig to try and win over, but it's on the same flip of the coin. Get that vision out under control so we can make some more picks and make some more attempts to get these hyper carries of both Prismal and Spawn rolling.
I think one of the big things to harp on there is that Golden Guardians had won that trade
Yep.
if Tally and Yunbi stay behind their turret.
Yeah, it's just a questionable pickup on that. But another thing that went under the radar is also Yusui is now 2-0 on this Tristana with Gale Force. So going into this mid-game stage, I'll be curious on when he's going to be able to complete that second item, because that is a huge power spike for Tristana, who will be able to absolutely burst down the squishy composition of Golden Guardians.
Here is a second look at this bot lane. You can see just a very well executed dive. Spawn knew it was coming, but there's not much you can do.
I'm looking at the minimap though, because while this entire debacle was happening on the bottom side of the map, Yunbi and Tally decided to go in on JJ and Lorlo. They thought Yusui had disengaged and gone back to catch the mid wave. That is not what happened. The vision was in Diggs Academy's favor, and now, all right, Acadian and Lorlo just decided to say, all right, Rosethorn, you don't get to have a jungle anymore. This is our land.
This is important, because Udyr needs to be out ahead in order to really be relevant as an engaged threat.
Sure.
Otherwise, you just chew through the Udyr HP as they're trying to reach you with his short arms. So it is important that they're getting extra farm over, that they're keeping the Udyr alive in a game that has been somewhat slow to this point. I do want to highlight what you were talking about there, because as Golden Guardians overextended up the top lane, we are still watching for signs of the kind of disconnected, uncoordinated Golden Guardians we saw during week 1. I think that may be a sign that that team is still lurking around the corners of this newly formed roster.
Still a little bit of hiccups, but also on the same side as Dig Academy. There have been some mistakes. They're just leaving Spawn to the Wolves here in this bottom side of the map, and he's able to adjust accordingly this time around, but will it be able to happen again now with Prismal really taking priority in this lane? Dragon is going to be up in a minute, and this is where Dig Academy, who has been more of a team that is tending towards that objective, will be able to try and contest for that priority. And then Golden Guardians, you can see the vision that they've already laid out. They've been doing pretty well in the vision so far coming into week 2. It's just now a question of how much will they be able to sort of advance into the Dignitas Academy jungle and keep track of Acadian and Lorlo, who are going to be looking for those flanks on them when this objective does spawn.
Pretty even game though.
Yeah,
within 1,000 gold of each other. Golden Guardians are benefiting from a focus towards their bot lane. You can keep your eye on Prismal in these upcoming team fights. Yusui, I think, is the obvious player to watch on the opposite side.
Yep.
But also, as we head towards this Drake fight, Dignitas' Acadian will be an unexpected threat.
We also don't have a Kraken Slayer or a Mythic item just yet from Spawn, so if that isn't cashed in soon, we're going to have a little bit of a poor option. No, from Spawn. Spawn doesn't have that Mythic.
I was watching Yusui burn his,
yes,
which is worth calling out because this is on the new patch, and it's a weaker Gale Force, 30 seconds longer cooldown.
Yep. 90 seconds instead of 60, so he's not gonna have that available. And honestly, with that overinvestment, they lose priority to this dragon. But look what's happening on the top side of the map. Lorlo is just pushing in onto the second turret, and this is a win for me if I'm Dignitas Academy, because you're getting so much top pressure. Yeah, like it's so much top pressure from Dig Academy that they're able to win over for just a meager Ocean Dragon. And bottom side of the map, nothing to gain, nothing lost, really. If Tally's able to get that bottom turret, maybe it's a little bit of a beneficial turn for Golden Guardians in the end. But overall, this is still a great grab and a wonderful reply from Dig Academy.
Yeah, I love them going, hey, we don't necessarily win this team fight. This isn't a positive percentage trade. Maybe if you're an LPL team, Dignitas go for the 50-50, but there's no reason to. Instead, we can get a positive percentage trade, or at least an even trade, guaranteed by taking the top turret, by taking the Rift Herald in exchange for the Drake. And that may come back to bite Dignitas if we go hyper late, if Golden Guardians get a third Ocean Drake. But I don't think we're headed into that world anytime soon. So for now, the gold lead stays just about dead even, and Dignitas still have a Rift Herald in the pocket to get a little bit more into their key bank accounts.
I'd be looking to open up this mid lane just a bit more if I was Dignitas Academy. Say, okay, we've got that Herald. Let's see if we can find a flank, get some jungle priority into our hands, and then really crack open this mid lane, because then what you can do with all that free space is create that vision, create a darkness around this Baron, because you can take this Baron fairly effectively if you are either Dig or Academy with how these compositions are cooked up. So you can bait the Baron, force the fights, because the one thing that Dignitas' Academy does lack in is sieging and engagement within those defensive structures. And that is where they need to drag Golden Guardians Academy's composition out of the safety of their turrets and into the darkness of the jungle.
I want to highlight what Acadian's up to here, because he is just consistently denying presence in the jungle, denying farm to Rosethorn, which is, again, absolutely something that you have to do if you're playing on Udyr into Rosethorn, who occasionally is caught out, but is playing Nidalee and wants to have teamfight impact here.
Yeah, the other thing, too, is that you slow down the scaling of the Moonstone Renewer and the Staff of Flowing Water Power Spike. He hasn't gotten that staff just yet, so if he's able to cash in here... I don't know. Rift Herald
just
kind of
died
just
in
vibed.
bed.
Yeah, it's a little unfortunate. Tragic. Well, you know, I guess nothing.
There was only one Rift Herald this game. It's a shame that there weren't two.
Yeah. Though, now to cash in, hey, I was just talking about that Staff of Flowing Water from Rosethorn. He did just cash in on that. So now that build path is very much at its peak potential in this early stage.
That was... Sorry, I'm hung up. That was actually wild, because Yunpi burned his ulti for no apparent reason into the top lane, got nothing. And
Yeah, because
Dignitas
was
were
just
like,
able to
sick,
disengage.
now's our opportunity to burn Rift Herald here in the mid lane and get absolutely nothing.
I tend to forget those plays because it's one of those things that you
move right on.
have to forget.
Keep
You're like,
going.
okay, like those two conditions gone. Drop it. Let's keep going.
Cancel each other out.
Exactly. So this is where both those teams now, again, it's that shove into the jungle, bait the Baron out, because both of these teams can take it fairly effectively. It's just a question of now which team is going to be able to control this vision a lot more. You can see it's already in favor of Golden Guardians Academy at this time. However, the split push threat, which was supposed to be Tally on Renekton this time around, is actually Dig Lorlo.
Spawn.
Okay.
In trouble. Half HP does stay ahead of the dive.
Ooh, close call.
Okay.
For all that pressure gained, they still have to address the side lanes. Their wave management is not good right now for Golden Guardians Academy, and now Tally has to run down to the bottom side of the map to address that, while the jungle is being taken from Lorlo.
You do maybe have Yasumi a little too far forward here.
He's fine. He's got Flash and Cleanse. He's good.
Tristana should be fine. It's worth paying attention to. First Baron is up on the map here. Dignitas do have it. Let's take another look at how that mid-game or mid-lane fight developed. You can see heal burned, Spawn able to stay ahead of it, but 2 flashes had to be used.
I respect it. A lot of summoners down. Move that punishment into this jungle again. Like, it's really difficult for Golden Guardians to break open any of the defensive structures unless they're able to rinse and repeat that attempt in the mid lane that they had just thrown onto Spawn. So from there, I want to see that adjustment come up once again, and you know that those timers are offline. Punish Spawn as much as possible. Yasui, he's being able to play safe, he's being able to play defensive. The other issue too is Lorlo, but now we've got 20 seconds until Dragon, and it looks like Golden Guardians is looking for a play.
Yeah, pretty serious fight developing there in the mid lane. It will be JJ caught out. Prismal able to nail him, condemn him to the wall. And that's exactly what Golden Guardians needed. As you say, this Drake is coming up. And it is exactly the disaster situation that we highlighted as a possibility when that second Drake got picked up. Golden Guardians, should they scoop this third Drake, now have a win condition on the map for every subsequent Drake.
I'm curious to see what that wards percentage cleared now is for Golden Guardians, who didn't have. They
are playing much more aggressive, yeah.
Yeah, they're doing pretty darn good themselves this time around. So.
This is so awkward. So Rosethorn is still doing the Drake, but Dignitas are doing a really interesting job of forcing Golden Guardians to match them across the rest of the map.
Oh, that's the
and
best.
They take advantage of this. Yep. They're just burning Baron.
It's a great reply. This is the quick calling and the leadership that I'm looking for from Academy and
2K.
Lorlo. They're not going to be able to get this. This is
Golden Guardians. It is gone. Baron already picked up Solar Flare and a full engage for the frontline Leona of JJ, but Lorlo misses ulti, and JJ is gone. And now Spawn's going to be tagged down as well, stunned up by the Winter's Bite and shut down. Lorlo's just trying to escape up top. They will survive, I think, with 2 Baron buffs. I don't see how Lorlo gets out of this. Golden Guardians get several kills. A Drake. Dignitas
TP?
technically get a Baron.
Hey.
Oh, surely not. What?
He so as'd it. What a legend. Learn from the greatest as it is. But that's a greatest. It was a very poor ending of Spawn and JJ falling to the hands of Golden Guardians with that disengagement away from the Baron. But they still come out with the Baron buff in their hands, and they still are holding on to their economy advantage as well. So this is something where it was a great reply from what Golden Guardians was throwing at them. JJ creates a lot of space for his team, and I think this was just a poor call from Dig as a squad to try and re-engage onto Golden Guardians. They were too far away from JJ to really complement his engagement and spacing that he was able to provide, and they just needed to use the time to get out and just run for their lives to keep the Baron buff intact. Thankfully for them, they were able to keep most of it in
I do not
pieces.
believe this.
Well, there was no true CC for him to survive. There was like nothing in the tank for Golden Guardians to catch him on that end. But now's the question of how much of this Baron buff will Dignitas Academy be able to use, because Golden Guardians is now understanding that condition of respecting the side lane because of how powerful that Baron buff can be, and they're addressing accordingly with Tally on the spawn side of the map. They're getting this jungle priority, really fighting for it tooth and nail, and it's up for Dig Academy to find a
Solar
fight
Flare,
here.
double stun, Lorlo in, huge stun from the Gnar ulti. It is a slaughter. Golden Guardians instantly lose Rose, Thorn, and Chime, and it could get worse. Tally dives the front lines to try and find a trade. JJ will fall, and Tally's not done. Diving, ult in hand, but Spawn has the punish. Round the side, it is a huge win for Dignitas off of a random team fight they find when Golden Guardians try to get aggressive.
Yeah, but with JJ finding a wonderful eclipse there onto 4 members of Golden Guardians, he's able to keep everyone locked down for Dignitas to sprint in and get on top of targets. But Yunbi and Prismo were not touched in that fight. They kept proper spacing, were able to use that choke point of the bridge into the river as their defense, and Dignitas was not able to pile dog on them to get the damage online. Unfortunately for them, they were torn apart by Tally's Renekton, being able to just rip them to shreds. And though it looked like Dignitas Academy came out on top, it was more of neutralizing the game once again, where Golden Guardians was fighting for that priority against a Baron buffed Dignitas Academy, and now just going back to this sense of neutrality, they'll be going into this middle lane to see if they can really drive a wedge into Golden Guardians' defenses.
Check out this Solar Flare, because I think it's one of my favorite
really
Solar
nice,
Flares
yeah.
in competitive. That Twitch clip that was on Reddit the other day for the 4-man one was pretty good. Check this out, though.
2 members, 4
right into Lorlo.
Yeah, 2 members get stunned, 4 get slowed, but Prismo and Yunbi untouched. So it's just this awkward choke point that, though it is the right strategy for Dignitas Academy to fight in these really confined spaces for their run at you composition to get to that backline, they were not able to find the answer that time around, but just enough members were killed on the side of Golden Guardians to delay the pressure that they were applying. So going into now, this is a minute until Soul Point, by the way, TJ.
Yeah. I do think it's important, especially going into Soul Point, that Spawn got in on that action. He assisted on 2 kills, he got the final one off of Tally's overcommittal. And we're seeing Spawn show up and be present in these team fights, which has not been the case this entire game. If he is enabled going into these all-important game-ending team fights, I think Dignitas are in with a very, very good shot.
Keep your eyes on Prismal. He is 5-0 on this Vayne with Kraken Slayer, Infinity Edge, and Phantom Dancer. He will tear members to shreds with this Vayne, and all you need to see is if Dignitas Academy will be able to jump on top of him, because his cleanse is currently down, and he doesn't have a QSS in his back pocket to reply, though thankfully for them,
Prismal?
they're really pushing Dig away.
Diving in, Yusui badly split from the rest of the team, will be exhausted. Solar Flare does not land from JJ. Tally, all the while, it must be noted, is split pushing in bot lane.
This is as good as Golden Guardian's Dragon. So many key ultimates are down. Solar Flare is offline. Lorlo has to wait for his Mega Gnar. It is now available. He needs to get into this fight, get onto Prismal, but they are not going to be able to do that.
Acadian has a chance to go over the wall. Surely not. Lorlo's in. Acadian's over the wall. They find the stun, but not the Baron. Or sorry, the Drake. That did go to Golden Guardians. Rosethorn kiting back. Tally in the front lines. He's just chewing through 3 members, and JJ's gone as well. A double kill past to Prismo behind that. Lorlo and JJ both fell And Acadian surely is down for his first death of the game, as well as Golden Guardians appear to be speeding towards their first win of the Academy season.
And what was a very great composition given to Golden Guardians with obvious win conditions, obvious strategies to approach, has become a thriving team in this game. And with Prismal being the spearhead of that, flashing just away from Lorlo, jumping into the Dragon Pit, and then just tearing apart both Acadian and Yasui. From there, he's able to turn back to the members stuck in the pit of Dignitas Academy, and the rest of Golden Guardians can chase down the members of Acadian. And from there, a triple kill going over to Prismal, who's now 8-0 on this vein. We wanted, from that interview with Chime, he wanted to have that priority. He wanted to have this powerhouse bottom lane come out of Golden Guardians, and he's gotten it today.
Yeah, this is a really, really good side for a Golden Guardians roster that we were so critical of coming in. It doesn't help that we had like 20 minutes to fill, but we really did talk through Golden Guardians' entire record and their entire failings. We said they had to show a more coordinated front, they had to show promise, and this was the first team within striking distance that they really owed it to themselves to beat. And this is a really coordinated Golden Guardians. Case in point, as the engage comes through in mid lane, JJ's gone again. Condemn will land, Lorlo will follow, Prismal is eating an entire team alive. There's no way Dignitas stop this inhibitor turret from falling.
Unfortunately for Golden Guardians, they don't have a wave just yet to crash it towards the Nexus, and the respawn timers will be coming up shortly. They will have to disengage towards this Baron, but this is as good as theirs. Golden Guardians is reaping the rewards of this wonderful composition that they've cooked up, and just from those 2 kills they were able to catch, there's no front line to try and challenge this Baron. Acadian will be running to his death if he looks to try and steal this Baron.
He's going. Here comes Acadian.
He's
moving real fast up the map.
He doesn't have flash, so he can't just jump into the pit.
Yeah, he's giving up. Baron will be picked up. That is Dignitas, I think, now sealed out of this. And Golden Guardians did exactly what you asked them to do during the draft call.
Yep.
Yes, they do have a team comp that works well in late game, but they got there based on their mid game, their early game win conditions, which enabled them to get to that point. Prismal was always going to be the threat, but we got there because Tally, because Rosethorn were skirmishing all throughout the early and mid game and holding Dignitas even.
That was so great about it too, because even though it wasn't as traditional as I was thinking with Golden Guardians composition, they still got there. And when you get to that endpoint, that's what matters. Look at how much damage Spawn took from just 2 shots from Prismal. And from there, it's just ripping the rest of the members to shred from Dignitas Academy. JJ could not defend for long. Oh, imagine if he had a Gwynso's Rage Blade just to double proc his Silver Bolts as well. Oh, hey, he got a rapid fire cannon so he can shoot you from even farther away. And also, he's got that stopwatch to boot. So even if Dignitas Academy finds the Hail Mary play and is able to get onto Prismal, he's got the tools to delay their advantage just a bit farther. The only thing I'm seeing right now is that they are 3-manning Tally underneath his turret, and they did not come out on top.
No.
That was a Hail Mary play.
In the meantime, we do have Dive coming through in the top side from Golden Guardians. They will get a second inhibitor. Not going for the end.
He's chasing him down in the bottom side of the map.
I am watching that as Tally just goes on the offensive. Golden Guardians, are they cutting this? This feels unnecessary.
They're going to cut him off.
It's a Leona. You don't need to do this to him.
This is... Oh, come on. Who's going to get it? Supportal combat question? Oh, okay. Prismal gets it. 11-0.
Chime didn't take it.
I would give it to Chime, man. He deserves it. He's doing phenomenal on it.
Anytime you can deliver a kill to a Braum, I don't know. I'd take it.
It's just a win. But now,
here we go.
Yeah, traditional start. Finish it up, make it clean, right? Get all 3 inhibitors, all the turrets down. If you can make this as clean as possible, pad those stats, it gives you so much confidence going in tomorrow, and that's what Golden Guardians is looking for.
They take their time, they dot their I's, they cross their T's, they take all 3 inhibitors. And Golden Guardians will blast their way to their first win of this Academy season. They skirmished through the early game, they played towards the late game, and it is Prismal, the long-suffering Academy AD carry, is able to step up and carry the day. Dignitas to have a last stand here underneath the turret as the minion waves build. Flash in from Acadian, double stun up from the Glacial Fissure, and watch Prismal in these backlines as JJ does land his stun. He's able to survive it all and just delete everyone who steps forward. Double kill already, that's gonna be game. A triple, surely not. Inside the fountain, he can't get the penta. Prismal will secure the game, however, as the Nexus falls. Golden Guardians have one in their win column.
Let's just go back to sort of the journey and the discussion that we had before the game as well on how Dignitas Academy is a team of veteran players who are really invested and dependent on their micro plays and their experience to carry them through these games, where Golden Guardians have that lackluster, but they have that ambition as well for this team to thrive as a unit and as an identity. It comes out on top for Golden Guardians because they were able to notice those weaknesses from week one. Dignitas fell flat.
I do want to call out two things that we discussed during the pregame. Chime talked about how he wanted to have a more skirmish-heavy playstyle.
Yep.
We saw that here. We saw Golden Guardians step up, take more skirmishy fights, and how that enabled their late-game win condition. And it wasn't about the bigger team fights. It wasn't about team fighting around objectives. It was about skirmishing and then understanding how that unlocked the rest of the map, which is more impressive, if you ask me.
I think it was great in the sense of adapting the Nidalee pickup from Rosethorn, where it did have some lackluster performance of how obvious the win condition was with Tally's Renekton to hard focus that top side of the map, but they adjusted it properly. They started to see that Prismo was making some movements down there with Chime and adjusting that condition to the right carry pickup for their comp was what really took that game and really got the snowballs rolling and giving them that W.
And I also want to call out, prior to last week, I went into Prismal's Twitch chat as he was streaming. I don't know, follow him on Twitch, it's just Prismal. And I said, hey Prismal, I'm going to be casting you, give me like a sick quote or a tagline, some fighting words to read on air. And here is what Prismal said. And I quote, gamers are just people, just be nice to each other.
I can see the smiley emoji coming out just now. Just a little smile. Just
wise words. We're going to go to a break. When we come back, we can ask Prismal about Leaf Blower Revolution, which, and this is true, he has more hours on than League of Legends. Don't go far. We've got an interview still to come. After that, a whole day of Academy Games. Welcome back. We're putting the C in LCS Academy because you can see Prismal. How'd you like that?
Yes.
Yeah, it's not bad. Hi, Prismal. How are you doing?
Pretty good.
Prismal, you guys just dominated a game. You took apart Dignitas in the second half, but we had a kind of slow, skirmishy start to that game. Did you feel in control the whole time?
I'm not gonna lie, I definitely felt like the game wasn't as in control as it should have been, especially as we're not as experienced as a team yet, and we're all pretty new, except for a few of us. I think as the game kind of progressed, it became pretty clear that it's pretty easy for us to win with our draft, and their champions can't really do anything against ours, but it was definitely really out of our control at the beginning, for sure.
Sounds good. Well, I'm curious about sort of how the team cohesion is right now, because you guys had that first week one, a little bit of a rough start for everybody. Going into this new week, what was one of the things that you guys approached directly to sort of patch up and sort of fix the hiccups that you had in the inaugural start for Academy?
I think the biggest thing for us was just focusing on the basics. As like I said, our mid jungle are super new to competitive, and we kind of had to drill in a lot of these timers, and it was really important for us to kind of take a step back and think about the game, like the fundamentals, different timers for, you know, resets, and kind of working together as a team. And I think we are getting better and we're making a lot of progress, but it's definitely something that requires a lot of our attention, at least going into the year.
do you guys feel good after you've picked up your first win now? You did face two of the strongest teams in Academy right off the bat. Do you feel good heading into the rest of the season? Do you feel like you're going to be placing among those top teams, or is this more of a development period right now?
I feel like we have very strong individual players, and we definitely can be a top 3 team at least. I definitely want to win Academy. I want to at least be someone that's considered super highly rated by everyone, and I want our team to be the same. I think we definitely can do it, and we're on the right track to do it, but every game is a different one, and I think we just need to keep working hard, and we'll eventually get where we want to be.
Well, we were very impressed by that last game. Before I let you go, I want to ask you just a tiny bit about Leaf Blower Revolution,
right.
which, if I'm not mistaken, you have been playing a lot of. How's that been factoring into your gameplay here?
It's an idle game, so whenever I'm tilted, let's say scrims aren't going too well, I just load it up. I can blow some leaves around, relieve some tension. I definitely feel like it was helpful for my performance, although I am on a Leaf Blower hiatus right now. Haven't been playing in like a month, or maybe a couple of weeks. Maybe that's why we're winning so many games, who knows. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Prismal. I wish you the best of luck in the rest of this season.
Thank you, guys. Have a good day.
That will be our Verizon post-game interview. Coco, I'm really psyched about 2 things. 1, that was a great interview. I like Prismal.
Yeah,
He seems like a nice guy. 2, FlyQuest versus CLG, we are going to get to play on stream. That was going to be our first game of the day. And we had about 20 minutes of ping issues. I don't know, they got him a new router. And we're going to be able to watch that game at the very end of the day. So stay tuned for that if you're looking for FlyQuest Academy versus CLG Academy. Before we go there, though, up next it'll be TSM taking on Team Liquid, and you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned, it'll be all right after this.